If you have never sold anything online, but you are an experienced and educated personal trainer, and you tend to convert the majority of people that sit in front of you, and you would like to sell some stuff online, this is definitely the live for you. I reckon this might be a 30-minute conversation, 30-minute one-way conversation anyway. But I'm going to give you 3 of my best sales call frameworks to be able to get you to your first yes. Now, if you've sold a few already, you sold a bit of premium online, buckle up and join in anyway, because this will help you make more sales. But often this is the understanding that this is for people that haven't necessarily made that jump just yet. Couple of things. You probably got most of what you need. Number one, I've already said it. You already convert the majority of people that sit in front of you. I certainly did when I was in the gym. I just needed to know the small tweaks that I needed to make to be able to do the same thing online. Number two, if you've been in the industry for more than 5 years, you've probably got a lot more of what you need than you think to actually take your skill set that you have in person and deliver it online. And number three, if you are over 35, my hope is that you realize I would actually like to spend a few more of my evenings at home. And maybe I'd like to, over the next few years, I'd like to travel a little bit more. So if that's the case, then you definitely want to listen up to this as well. So I'm going to give you a little bit of my view of where the market is right now in 2026. I'll start with the sad news. When I first started selling online coaching, hardly anyone was doing it. We're talking 12 years ago, something like that. The reality was it was a little bit easier. And so you could sit there and say, well, why do I even want to know this? Why should I even listen to something that's around how to make more sales when we all know that it just feels much harder in 2026? I'll give you 3 reasons. Well, 3 things that we need to contend with. Russell Brunson used to talk about, I'm sure he still does, but he used to talk about the first 100K in any business is sales. Now, he might have said the first 100K in any consulting business, coaching business is sales. What I think a lot of people want to do is they want to hide behind marketing. And when I say hide behind marketing, is because they don't like sales. They feel icky about it. And often it's because they just don't have frameworks, which is what this is about. I would also say that in an ideal world, if people could do a lot of the yards from marketing, fantastic. Marketing is one to many, sales is often one to one. And you know what? In an ideal world, maybe in 5 years, a lot of the movement in your clients from not being your clients to clients, more of it is done in marketing. But this was my experience and why this is really important. Sales is easier to get good at than marketing. Most personal trainers suck in marketing. And they're getting even worse now because of ChatGPT, and they're just trying to outsource it, and they'll never learn anything, and they'll sound just like every other person on LinkedIn. It's harder marketing. Sales is easier to get you good at. And also what it does is it makes use of skill sets that you probably already have. Interpersonal communication, coaching with your clients, maybe asking them questions, maybe listening skills, maybe just being someone who's personal. And again, you probably convert the majority of people that sit in front of you in the gym. So we understand that at the beginning, sales can be a really important lever to pull. It was for me. And I sold my first program at £1,200, which at the time was about $1,800, $1,700. And I was selling decent prices in the gym, but it felt a real win because it was the first time I got someone to say yes on a simple sales call, and they were my first online client. Yes, there is a bit of a challenge now. And no, let's talk about this, in fact, before we get to the challenge of what's happening right now in 2026. Just a sales maxim, a sales truism is that things will default to no if the person is unsure in any way. Things will default to no if the person is unsure in any way. Because no is safe. No is staying where you are. No is not taking a risk. No is not facing this thing that's hard for them to do. Otherwise, they wouldn't be asking for your help. And then realizing that they failed again. Safe is not wasting money and feeling stupid for spending money with someone. A lot of self-loathing when they do your program or do a program and it doesn't work. It's just easier to say no. The default is no. No is like the warm bed with your duvet. I'm just going to stay in my little world and I'm not going to go out. Saying yes is going out into the world. It's going out and slaying the dragon, right? And that takes a lot of courage. But for many reasons, people will default to no. And so why has that been made a little bit harder? But obviously, if you listen to this training, I'm going to show you how to overcome some of this. The reason it's become even harder is because there is a level of trust or a lack of and a level of suspicion in the market. Unfortunately, I would say that was caused somewhat by the free money that was floating around in circa 2019, 2020. And lots of people spending their money on online coaching programs. And to be honest, getting very underwhelmed. So I give you my 3 frameworks. I'll start with my big overall framework, which is the 6-box selling system. I'm going to go through that. How do you structure a consultative selling conversation without feeling icky, so you know what you're going to say next, for about 40 minutes on Zoom. Then I'm going to go through some funkier, cooler stuff. I'm going to go through the 3 checkpoint questions, which are huge. They make such a difference. If you can just, even if you've got a sales process right now, when I go through the 6-box selling system, you're like, yeah, I know about that, Tim. I do that. You're going to add these in, like these can help. And then I'm going to add one more in. So you might be someone who's like, Tim, I think I'm decent at sales, but I find it a problem, or I'm worried that someone might say, well, I think I need a personal trainer. So the last one I'm going to give you, and I did write the name down of this, is the 1 to 5 online differentiator. Should have a TM on it, by the way. And it's a sales framework that you can employ to help the person see why a personal trainer or personal training would not be the best option for them in this situation. So, 6-box selling system. We have a 45-minute Zoom call. How do we fit this into a sales process? Well, we have a conversation with someone, whether it's an email, whether it's a post, whether they're messaging you, whether it's a referral. We have a conversation and we introduce them to the idea of having a call with you. Some people call them discovery calls. Some people call them all sort of roadmap calls. Some people call them all sorts of different calls. Internally, we call them triage calls. We don't call them that externally. The reason we call them triage calls is because it's kind of that situation where you go into a hospital and you realize, like, is this person like a little bit effed or are they proper effed? And if they're proper effed, then they need to go straight away to get the help. And if they're not that proper effed, we'll see. We're looking to see, is this person someone we want to help and do they need our help? And could we actually help them? That's usually generally a phone call for about 10, 15 minutes. Then from there, we book them into a longer call. Lots of benefits of doing like that. So you don't waste your time speaking to someone for 45 minutes that's just not really in need of your help anyway. The last part is the 45-minute Zoom call. To be honest, they can sometimes be a bit shorter. Sometimes they can be longer. It's up to you. But that's generally what we suggest that you sort of bank out, 40, 45 minutes. That's where the 6-box selling system comes in. So again, we have to understand that they've gone through the other 2 stages. And then at this point, we have an open where we talk rapport and we just make the person feel comfortable. We go into the pain box, which is the 2nd box. We go into the pleasure, which is the 3rd box. We go into the bridge, which is no shit, the 4th box, the close, and then ideally we don't want to have to step into the 6th box. We don't want to have to go there, and we can lessen the chances of going there if we do the other boxes correctly, and that is objections. Lots of people love the objection handling stuff. Personally, I would prefer not to have to teach anyone any objection handling, and certainly not after the close, ideally. But you sometimes need to, because sometimes people are a bit unsure. Open 2 minutes, 3 minutes. You don't want to get in friend zone. You're not there to chat about the weather. You're not sitting there having a mother's meeting. You're not chatting about someone's, oh, Tim, but I know these people. I feel like I should. Yep. Just, oh, how's your day? Yep. Great. I'll tell you what, let's just crack on. Is that okay? You want to get through that. Rapport building is not done from asking inane questions. However much some salespeople will tell you. You want to get into the in fact, it actually takes you further away from it. So minute, 2 minutes, and then you just set the frame. People like to know what's going to happen. If we look at the way that the brain behaves, when we don't know what the structure of the next situation is going to be, we can be a little bit unsure. What we're doing when we set in the frame and telling exactly what's going to happen, how long it's going to take, the sections we're going to go through, we almost can get the person to relax. They go into a separate part of their brain where it's much easier to actually have a conversation with them, and they're not panic about what might happen at the end. Just tell them how long it's going to be and what's going to happen at the end, how long it's going to be, the stages you're going to go through. We're going to look at where you are now. We can look at where you want to get to, and probably look at, really importantly, what has held you back and what would we need to put in place to get you from where you are now, where you want to be. And listen, at the end of the call, and you can have, look, at the end of the call, if I feel like this is something that we can help you with and you feel like you want to get some help, we'll obviously have a conversation about what we would need from you in the form of resources, time, energy. Well, I wouldn't say time, energy. I'd say time, money, energy. Sound good? Yes. So they know that there will be a potential offer at the end. It doesn't become a surprise. Go into pain. I'm not going to go for all of these in depth. This is probably an hour and 20-minute training in total, maybe even up to 2 hours of training in total. We want to talk about their current situation. We use the framework of the 4 Fs, their fitness, but how their fitness affects their family, faith, and finances. Not all of them, but we want to actually know, how does their current situation affect the things that are really important to them in their life, because you know what, their fitness may or may not be. They're not you. Then we want to find out like how it affects them, how they feel about it. Then we look at the pleasure. We have to give someone a vision for the future, because most people don't have that. Most people are often buying out of pain, which is one of the big mistakes salespeople make, is that they just focus on the pain because that's more visceral and, oh, they felt it, I could feel it. We have to make them see that this is a potential, a possibility for them. So the next box is the pleasure. How would they want things to look like? How would they feel? Like, I can throw a million questions in here. One question I used to really like was, so just to sum up, like, I'm going to ask you a question. When you've hit that, like that 30 pounds that you've talked about, just curious, what would be the first thing that you would do? And then often they would say, well, I'm not sure. And I'd always give them permission. I'd be like, sure, but like, just if you had to know, like, what would... And what I'm trying to do is get them to create a movie picture in their mind. Now, depending on who they were, it would often be different things. You know what? I'd go and buy myself X outfit, or I'd go to this location, or I would do this. Often it was shopping. Often it was, I'd buy myself, and I would paint this picture of them. I'm like, what dress would it be? Tell me about it. I'm obviously not a dress man myself, but go on. What color would it be? What would you do with it? How would you feel about yourself in that situation? So again, I'm creating where they are now and how it affects them. And I have to create a vision for them. They have to be able to create this in their mind to know that it is a possibility. Then we go on to what we would call the bridge. And that's kind of the place to go from the current situation where they want to be into the close. Now, this is broken down in our sales training, and we look at something. I'm going to focus today on what's called the shopping list. And as I do, this is where the 1 to 5 online differentiator comes in. Because what I want to do on this call is I need to give the person an understanding of why they might not get the result that they want with personal training. My belief is, it's not belief, I know, that when done correctly, online is much, much, much better for transformation, weight loss, mindset change, health transformation, all of this stuff. Personal training is better for when you just want to get someone strong, like an athlete or something. But for everything else, online is better. But the person might not know that. In fact, they won't. So if I jump in the 3 frameworks that I said I would give you to the last one. Here's how I used to do it, and you can borrow which part of this that you can use, because you would not be able to use all of it because you would sound silly. But I would say something like this. We'd be getting towards, we've done the pain, we've done the pleasure. And what I'm trying to do is create a shopping list of what the person thinks that they need. So I'd say something like, this, can I tell you a little bit about what I think people need to know to cover to be able to actually lose that 30 pounds that you talked about? And they would say, of course. By the way, questions are the answers. If you've not done loads of sales training, they'd say, of course. So I will always check in with questions. Okay, cool. So what we did is we actually, when I wrote my last book, this was a while ago when I wrote a fitness book, me and my ex-business partner, what we actually did is we looked at all the things that someone needed to do to lose weight. And to be honest, we came up, and I'd sometimes interject, it depends on how much time I had, to be like, we looked at, guess how many things came up on Google, and they'd be like, if I said like 50,000, would you be surprised? And they'd be like, no, not at all. And be like, yeah, tell me about it. It's like, so we came up with an idea of there was about 80. But for the book, we really wanted to put it into some sort of framework. So we came up with the idea of 5 pillars. Can I tell you what they were? They'd be like, yes, please do. Okay. And I'd say, this was a while back. I slightly do it differently now, but this was a decade ago, but it's proven. I'd say training, nutrition, like lifestyle factors like stress, sleep, mindset, and then I used to say, and habits. I would do it differently now. I would probably not differentiate mindset and habits, and I'd probably talk about more like behaviors and habits, because that's what we do, behavior change coaches. And then this is where the magic starts. Which of those, I'd probably say something like this. I'd be like, look, I don't know if we're going to work together, but just if we did, which of those would you need the most help from me? Now, I'll come back in a minute of what the general answer was. And there was a differentiation between men and women. But I'll tell you what I'm actually doing here. I'm looking to take what they might think or might claim or might have the misconception is a 1-pillar problem, and I'm changing it into a 5-pillar problem. Because then they can't say, I just want to go and get a personal trainer. And yes, I know lots of us as personal trainers did all of those things. That's fine. But that wasn't this person's experience, and it doesn't really matter, because actually all I'm trying to do is take it from a 1-pillar problem to a 5-pillar problem, because I actually believe that to be true as well. Me being a very good personal trainer in the gym, me being a very good online behavior change coach, I know which version of me got a better result for my clients. So, because I don't want them to just go, oh, I'm just going to go and get a personal trainer. Yeah. But our brain works on something called a law of consistency, which if I've said something, I believe it to be true and I will stick to that. Not that I would ever need to get into this place, but I could use an objection hand. Well, do you mind if I point something out? You kind of said earlier that you needed, the most help with this pillar. Doesn't totally make sense that, like, exercise. Do you really think that just exercise is really going to work? Now, you won't likely get in this situation anyway. So I bring it back to the thing. And here's what happens. Generally speaking, more women said things like diet or nutrition, and generally speaking, more men said things about training. But I can use what I call the ask, tell, ask model. And all that means is sometimes on a call, I can ask them a question. If they don't know the answer, I can tell them something, but then I have to reconfirm that with a question. So, okay, so you said that you needed some help with the training. Look, I would suspect most people, I mean, you probably heard, like, I know you can't out-train a bad diet. Abs are made in the kitchen. Like, oh, yeah. Okay, so would you feel that you would need some help with the nutrition? Yeah, actually, you know what? Yes, I would. Okay, cool. What would that look like? And what I'm looking for at this point is I'm looking to create a shopping list in my mind on a bit of paper. I can even tell them that I'm writing this down, and I want specifics and I want words. An example. I might have to point out to them that what they really need is something like some help around like mindset, but mindset doesn't mean anything. So like, I definitely feel like I need some help with my mindset. Okay, cool. What would that exactly look like? What would that exactly look like? And what I'm after from them, in their words, is words and situations. I just want someone to kick my ass. I'd say something like, well, I don't want to like, kick my ass, but I don't know. To me, that's usually sounds like accountability. Would that? Yes, accountability. Okay, cool. Do you mind if I write that down? Accountability. Yes. Just like curious, like let's look at an average week. Where would you like feel that you need that accountability the most? Tim, you know what? I'm really good during the beginning of the week. And then I just end up falling off the wagon and I get so stressed from work. And then to be honest, like I probably have like a glass of wine on Friday. And then before I know it, and then I've just like damaged all of my progress from the week. And then I'm back to square one on Monday. Okay, so accountability. And very specifically, you would like that towards the end of the week. Yes. Okay. So if I could help you with that, would that be beneficial? They say yes, yes, yes. Training, what does it look like? Very specifically, they might say, I want a training workout, like a training program for while I'm at home. I need to try anything else. Like you travel a lot. You said, I definitely need some. Okay. So we'll add in that you need a training program for when you're away. And all I'm doing is getting very specific shopping lists from people. Now, sometimes people would say, Tim, this almost feels like I'm asking them what they want me to sell back to them. But they don't often say that, but that's the reality. And I'm like, well, here's the rule. If you ask that question, they said, Tim, I want a diet plan where I can sit on the sofa and eat donuts for breakfast and never have to work out, but lose 20 pounds. And you go, awesome. And you say that that's possible, that is unethical. If when you ask them to be very specific about what they need outside of just the one exercise pillar with all of the others covered, and you know you can provide that for them, happy days. Happy days. The person at the other end will not know that you're asking them what to sell back to them, but it's also what they also actually need. So if they're telling you that they need accountability at the weekend, if they're telling you that they need to learn how to control their emotional eating, or they need some help with why they do this, why they make these choices, as long as you know that you can do that for them, happy days. What you're really looking for is what we call a shopping list. A shopping list will be part of the bridge, but it will be some of the stuff they've said, and also sometimes you add in things that you know they need as well. So you got this shopping list, the 1 to 5 online differentiator. The aim is that they tell themselves, oh, but just curious, by the way, earlier on I asked you about like what you've done before, and you said like you've worked with personal trainers, but it never seemed to work. Just with what we've just talked about, do you have more of an idea of why it didn't work before? Oh my God, Tim, yes. Because I was just going for an hour session a week and then that was it. And I just need all of this. I mean, I wouldn't say I just need all of this other help. And really the problem was, to be honest, a lot of the problem was my eating and just my lack of motivation. Cool. So we take the option of hiring a personal trainer off the table. I will give you the second sales framework in the 3 because I've given you the first one and I've given you the last one. Now, this is one of my favorites. And by the way, if you're watching this live, you could watch it back and you could make notes. The reason I want to do lives like this is some people have a framework already because they've done it in the gym. They just need to know how to tweak things for a different offer or product. Some people haven't done any of this. So you've got the whole framework, but these are the little bits that you would insert into that 6 boxes. Of course, the last one, the 1 to 5 online differentiator, would go in box 4. This other last one takes a little bit of nuance, a bit of understanding. Doesn't mean that you can't do this straight away. You can, but you'll get a bit of a gist because they don't exactly have a space that they go in the boxes exactly. So the 3 checkpoint questions. Here's how I think about this. When I explain it to my clients, I can see like maybe like 60% of them are like, yeah, I get that. And 40% is like, Tim, what are you fucking talking about? So it's like, imagine you're walking along. This is my metaphor in my head from somewhere. You're walking along like you're on a big cliff, and down this side of you, there's like the sea. I don't know. In my mind, it's like Beachy Head or the White Cliffs of Dover. And I'm walking along with my client or potential client, and I always want to make sure that they're next to me. Because what a lot of people do when they start doing sales calls is they get to the end and they think that the person's going to say yes. And when they say no, they just don't understand it. It's like, it seemed like they really need it. They told me they like it, just, I don't get why I didn't. And sometimes it's because we've just misjudged the conversation. If we've misjudged the conversation, sales default to no. So we need to make sure that we're just always getting these little mini temperature checks that they are with us, because they can often be a couple of steps behind us and we don't realize they are. And so the 3 checkpoint questions, metaphorically, visually, it's almost just the me stopping and just making sure that they are right next to me and actually just confirming that. Now, I don't literally do that. The first checkpoint question, I'll give you all 3 of them and I'll tell you where they fit in. The first one, you should write these down. The first one is, does something need to change? Simple as, does something need to change? We want a yes. If it's a no, you know what? We're perfectly okay with a no as well. You know what that means? Is call over. Why the hell are they even here? They're certainly not going to buy in that situation. The second question is, do you think you need some help with this? Do you think you need some help with this? You can write that down as well. Third question, and this is where it takes some big kahunas, where people start to worry a little bit, is, do you want my help? And I wouldn't say it like that. I'd be like, do you want my help? That is a hard question to ask, especially when you're new. If you're new to doing this, you might just do the first 2 and you're like, oh, I'll have to build up the courage to do the last one. I'll give you a couple of layers to each of those, and I talked about why they work, what they're doing. But first of all, where would they go? Generally speaking, does something need to change? I usually think about asking it after or within the end of the pain block. If someone ever says to me, like, I just think something needs to change, I'll be like, oh, you do? You do? Yeah, you do? Yes. So I'm getting them to confirm something about, I know I just need some help. So you do know that you need help? Yes. Or they wouldn't say it like that. I'd be like, so you do know that you need help? Yeah. You do? I mean, yes. Okay. For sure? Yes, I do. Okay. And part of this is what I call coaching yeses. So we can coach a yes on the first one, which is, does something need to change? The only answer that is acceptable is yes, not yeah, not yeah, maybe. It's like, you do, you don't, yes, no. And they might go, yeah, I think so. And it's like, you do or you don't? Yes, no. Because you coach yeses at the beginning of the call, and it makes it much easier for them to be led by you towards the end of the call. And the reality is, if someone can't give you a very strong yes, something needs to change, we've either missed something or they don't think it needs to change. So I'm always getting the yeah into a yes. Now, a bonus is I can ask why. I would not ask it after every one of the 3 checkpoint questions, but I can ask it. And it goes, just something does something need to change here? Yes. It does. Yes. Okay. Why? Now, I might say that along. I wouldn't say it in all of them. I might say, do you think you need some help with this? Yes, I do. Cool. Curious why. Right? We just want them to tell us, because I can't do it on my own. Here's the thing, right? Telling is selling when they say it's the truth. When you ask these questions, all you're doing is getting the truth on the table, because I can't do it on my own and I've tried so many times. Okay. That is a good thing for the person to say out loud. It's not enough for it just to be in their mind. They have to verbalize it outwards and verbalize it out to you. By the way, we talked about avoiding the 6th box, which is the objections. I think I'm just going to try this on my own. We don't even want to have to try and tackle that objection. And the law of consistency, which is in Cialdini's book, will mean that the person will really struggle to say that if you've asked them, do they think they need some help? And they've said yes, and they've explained to you why. it's almost impossible for them to come back at the end and go, oh, I just think I'm going to try this on my own. I'm not saying it never happens. You often don't need to tackle the objection because it's also not true. The last one takes the kahunas. And why people are often scared of this is because they don't know what the other person would say, but you have to believe what I'm about to tell you. There is a reason the person is on the phone to you. There is a reason. Now, that reason could be all sorts of things. By the way, it might be that they're like, nah, I'm not sure. When you practice sales and when you have multiple calls and when you learn and when you listen back to your calls and you figure out what I could do differently and you realize that sales is not an adversarial sport, it's you working with them to get them the right solution. You realize that when you ask that, do you want my help? You actually have to listen to what they say. And sometimes people might say no. It's unusual because they feel rude, but they'll say something that doesn't mean yes. And it's just information. Might be, yeah, you do? Yes, no, yes. I mean, yes, I do, Tim. Yes. Cool. Why me? Why do you want my help? And sometimes you can play with that. I'd be like, why me? Look, there's a million marketers out there. Why me? You will get all sorts of answers. And you know what? The reason that you might get strange answers is because a lot of people, when they buy, they actually don't know why they bought. It just felt right. The default is to know, but if we can create an environment of trust and understand what we're doing, they'll buy it and they'll just be like, it just felt right. Like, yeah, I just wanted to do it. It felt right. Or the opposite is, just didn't feel right. I don't know. So they might say, I've had people say to me like, oh, you just seem like a normal person. And like, sometimes I'd sit on that and I'd be like, cool. Sometimes I'd be like, nah. Listen, you're going to pay me some money. It's not crazy, but it's not going to be like pennies. It's got to be more than that. It's not just you think I'm a normal person. There's lots of normal people. Like, why do you want my help? And honestly, when you challenge people, when you ask them, they will tell you, oh, you know what? I've seen this. I really like this. Might be that they saw something. I saw that result that you got with that client, or if they're a referral or something. Oh, my client just loves you. Okay, cool. And again, it can't be just in their head. It has to be verbalized outwards to themselves. So, sales is the first 100K. Most fit pros are going to be better at sales quicker than they will be at marketing. Russell Brunson said the first 100K is sales. Sometimes people want to hide behind marketing because it's less interactive. But if you asked me the level of competence of most personal trainers with marketing, when they first start, is probably a 1 or 2 out of 10. Sales, that will probably already at like a 4 or 5 with online sales because of what they've done previously, because they would have had to have had sales conversations. They may or may not have done as much marketing. But also I think it's easier for personal trainers to get to a sort of 6 or a 7. Can take like 3 months of good coaching or good learning. To get to that sort of point with marketing will take you 5 years. We have to understand that the default is always no in sales. The default is no. If we're unsure, we will say no. Our brains will default us to no. It's easier to say no than yes, because no is no is safety and yes is risk. And unfortunately, in 2026, the suspicion and level of trust is high suspicion, low trust, which is why you need to probably go and listen to this video again and make some notes and actually insert this into the sales process you're doing. It is harder to convert people in 2025 or 2026 because trust is at an all-time low. So what we can do to compensate for that is learn how to have a normal conversation with structure that helps that person not have to default to no because their brain gets worried or scared, but actually takes them on an ethical journey where we feel comfortable, where at the end of it, they want to go, yeah, I want to buy yours, and not, I need to think about it, or not a no, or not a, I'm going to go and hire a personal trainer. All right, I'd love to get some feedback on your biggest takeaway from the 34 minutes. We did well. I'd love to get everyone's feedback. If you've listened to this, please do give me a comment, and I find it useful. Speak soon.